Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Good morning. It is Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, Election Day, if there is such a thing anymore, down in Georgia. That is to say, I guess, the last day on which you can cast your ballot in the Senate runoff elections if you haven't done so already, and you are, of course, a registered voter in Georgia. We want to make sure everybody has that right. People have been voting early. People have been voting by mail, drop boxes, etc. You know the story. You know the fight that's been going on. It should be an interesting day. Okay, well, over at Daily Coast, they're serving up some, some remnant ad space being taken up. I guess I don't know how these things work anymore. And I guess it's Google placing these weird ads a little bit distracting. So let's switch that off the screen and get ready for the show. It is, of course, a new show this morning. We're live. We are reliably informed by Bill in Portland, Maine, who's not even here and yet knows how reliable we are. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman. Today covers Election Day in Georgia, to an extent. Yes, the new Congress. Yes, to an extent, that as well. And whatever the hell our mobster president is up to, that, of course, probably tops on the menu, even though we probably ought not to give him the oxygen. What can you do? This is the kind of show that this is. You'll want to know what's going on today, what's going on tomorrow, what can you expect. Joan McCarter will be here in the second hour to share her perspective on what's going on, and you can imagine pretty much where she's going to come down on these things. And as a matter of fact, Armando, looking for some additional opportunity to discuss the hijinks on tap for tomorrow. We'll take that up in a few minutes. I guess we'll just round up general news for a little bit, and then we'll begin talking about what's going on tomorrow and what the mechanics are expected to be. I think we've covered it we've covered it a couple times, of course. Things keep changing a little bit at a time. We keep finding out more information about what the plans are, even though the plans by rights should not matter. We're in that weird space again where I'm forced to explain this stuff to you as can it happen? No, but also a little bit yes, because rules might not matter anymore. It's one of those situations. We'll go over what the rules are, and again, we kind of have to reiterate, there's really no way under any, as long as we're sticking to any sort of system of governance at all, that any of this should work. By rule, by law, it would require the agreement of the Democratic House of Representatives to any of the objections. In fact, a lot of the objections, maybe even all of the objections that might be made at some point tomorrow by Republican members of Congress during the joint session. I guess really we'll just cover the mechanics, how things are supposed to work. And then, you've heard it a million times, it's not supposed to be able to clear these hurdles. And then, of course, the curveball is, what if they just, whatever? I guess if it comes down to it, ultimately all you really have to know is, well, if they try to execute an actual coup and just simply overthrow the government, well, that will depend on how well armed they are, how widely dispersed their troops are, and what their plan of action is. And of course, they don't have any of that. What they do have is a bunch of Proud Boys coming to Washington, D.C., and I guess marching around and looking for a fight. Although there was some interesting material out there about who else might be coming besides your regulars at these usually smaller than expected assemblies of Proud Boy types. Last night there was news that the leader of the Proud Boys got himself arrested when he arrived in D.C. And I guess there's some concern because, of course, some of them arrived armed and carrying ammunition, which is of some note. But that's kind of sort of thing that they usually do anyway. not out of the ordinary, really, which is one of the problems with the groups, of course. Anyway, one of the Proud Boy leaders, and who knows whether they have such a thing, was arrested for activity of the group last time they showed up to protest who knows what in D.C. Last time they were around, they marched around and made a nuisance of themselves. No, not enough people showed up to fight them, to keep them busy and occupied, so they went around looking for people who looked like they might be Antifa and antagonized them and got themselves filmed. And in fact, one of them got themselves filmed getting knocked out. That was kind of fun. And after that, they got bored and didn't know what to do, so they went around and saw some Black Lives Matter banners hanging on a nearby church. And it didn't register with them, or they didn't care that it was a church. Tore the banner down and lit it on fire, because if you light a banner on fire, the things the banner talks about magically disappear. You know how that works. If you want to be more like a tiger, you should hunt one and eat its heart. That's what primitive cultures believe, and some of them anyway. Others of them were smart enough to realize now not eating a piece of an animal that you catch doesn't turn you into the animal, but Proud Boys, I guess, presumably would have believed that. Here, they're going to burn a banner, and that's it. They won. They beat Black Lives Matter. They don't matter anymore because we burned the banner. Anyway, as it turns out, several things turned out to be true about their burning of the banner. One was that it was a predominantly black church, historically black church, and so you get yourself in trouble as possibly involved in a hate crime, for one thing, which I'm sure they were plenty pleased to be involved in. And two, that pretty much everybody has cameras everywhere at this point. And that does change the nature of protest in a place like Washington, D.C., really anywhere now these days, since cameras are so easy to get and accessible and cheap. And so, of course, film exists of who did it. And anyway, turns out Enrique Tarrio, improbably enough, rising to the top of the leadership of the, generally speaking, right-wing and generally speaking white supremacist Proud Boys. Well, I don't know whether this enhances his grip on power there or destroys it, but the Washington Post reports the leader of the Proud Boys, the Cloud Boys, the Plowed Ploys, I don't know, Enrique Tarrio, was arrested in D.C. By D.C. police Monday afternoon and on a warrant charging him with burning that Black Lives Matter banner taken from a historic black church during a demonstration last month, officials said. Do we believe officials? Sure, in this case we will. Police stopped the vehicle Tarrio had been in shortly after it entered the district. I guess they were really watching him close. Said Dustin Sternbeck, a D.C. police spokesman. He said it is believed that Tarrio, who lives in Miami, was coming to the district from the airport. Sternbeck said Tarrio is charged with one misdemeanor count of destruction of property in connection with the December 12th burning of the banner stolen from Asbury United Methodist Church. So I guess they're not even going the hate crime route there. Probably just going to threaten him with it. And we'll see where it goes. Tarrio has told the Washington Post, had told the Post last month that he was among those who burned the banner. He was looking to get arrested for it and be a martyr. I understand there's already a GoFundMe up for a defense fund, so the grift continues unabated. Police said Tarrio, who was in custody Monday evening, was also charged with 2 felony counts of possession of high-capacity ammunition feeding devices, which is a legal term for a magazine, not a clip, don't say it that way, that allows guns to hold additional bullets. This is a little more information than we really needed about what a large-capacity magazine is, but okay. The devices were found during the arrest, police said. Members of the Proud Boys, a male chauvinist organization with ties to white nationalism, I guess that's how they're saying it in the Post now, are planning a rally in the district on Wednesday, that's tomorrow, in support of President Trump and his efforts to overturn the election he lost to Joe Biden. That will bring us around to the other topic of the day. The church banner was ripped down after a similar rally last month. Tarrio could appear Tuesday in D.C. Superior Court today. Prosecutors with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the district could modify the charges brought by police. Authorities had described the burning of the banner as a potential hate crime. Sternbeck said it would be up to prosecutors to determine whether to file hate crime charges, which could increase the penalty. Tario last month told the Post that he would plead guilty to destruction of property, pay the church the cost of the banner, and surrender to authorities if criminal charges were filed. However, Tario said he would not admit to committing a hate crime. That's fine. We got you anyway. He said he was not motivated by race, religion, or political ideology, but because he believes the Black Lives Matter movement, quote, has terrorized citizens of this country. That won't matter. And they haven't. Police have said 4 churches were vandalized the night of the December 12th rally, or I guess just riot, essentially, as the Proud Boys and other groups marched through downtown. The Post didn't actually use the term there. I threw in the term by accidentally reading it out that way. Police said 4 churches were vandalized. They just say the night of December 12th. Boom, that's it. As Proud Boys and other groups marched through downtown. Anyway, more than 36 people were arrested during the day's events. In one incident, 4 people were stabbed, remember this, amid a crowd of Proud Boys and Trump supporters outside Harry's Bar. Harry's famous stabbing bar, everyone knows that, which has become a Proud Boys gathering spot, like the hotel that they got kicked out of. They had a whole bunch of reservations, and the hotel said, to hell with that. You're out of here. Tario has said his supporters reacted to being attacked, blah, blah, blah. It was during that time that the Black Lives Matter signs were taken from the Asbury United Methodist Church and Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church, both historically black houses of worship. And, of course, that makes a whole lot of sense. They were reacting to their supporters being attacked, you see. And so they pulled down the banners in self-defense. They were going to wrap up the arms of their attackers in those banners. And then when they disappeared and no one could get any film of anyone attacking them, they decided this is the banner's fault and we'll burn it. I mean, what can I tell you? It's a dumb idea, but okay, that'll be their defense. The banner that Tario said he participated in burning was taken from Asbury United Methodist, one of the oldest black churches in the city, at 11th and K Streets Northwest. D.C. police have classified the burning as destruction of property, a misdemeanor when damage is under $1,000. It's punishable by up to 180 days in jail and a $1,000 fine. Tario previously said he does not know who previously said he didn't know who tore down the banner, and that neither he nor his members knew the church was predominantly African American. We didn't Google the church and go, oh, it's a black church, let's target it, Tario said. The sign was taken down because of what it represents. That may actually work. Asbury replaced its banner after it was taken on December 12th, but the church said the second banner was taken during the week of Christmas, because when else would you steal from a church? Church officials have asked for an increased police presence on Wednesday. We'll see whether they get it. That's where we currently stand with all of this. Let's see. There's 2 notes I'll add on this, and then maybe we'll start talking about why they're in town, and that'll segue into our discussion with Armando. Kate Sherrill says Tario's legal name is Henry, but he calls himself Enrique, probably to own the libs, and I guess make people say things like, I don't understand. If they're white supremacists, why would they be led by Enrique Tario? Oh, well, his name is Henry Tario, and although Tario might hint at one ethnicity or another, I couldn't tell you which one it is, but this way the libs are confounded and something, and I'm still arrested. So I don't know how effective the tactic has been. I happen to see here, retweeted into my timeline by Justice, who's pulling double duty here. What's this news? The tweet of, Doc Zombie. You remember him probably from not only Twitter, but I think also Daily Kos as well, right? I'm not imagining that. Every time I say something like this and I'm not 100% sure, I'm suddenly filled with such doubt. Now, I could be getting it wrong. I don't know if it really matters that much, but Doc Zombie tweeting, Proud Boys dressed as Antifa, or he puts it in scare quotes, Antifa, and I think that's probably a good idea, inciting violence per instructions from the White House. That would be describing the situation currently, I guess, in Portland, where Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler, in a press conference with the new, police commissioner, Mingus Maps, is that a real name? Wow. Law enforcement to condemn the last 2 days of violence and vandalism downtown, et cetera, et cetera. So another one of these situations, this again in Portland. They seem to go through this quite often. And this time, I guess Proud Boys instructed, don't dress in our Killer Bees costumes from Saturday Night Live, but dress up in all black and say you are a murder hornet from Antifa. And that way, they'll all have to be arrested and Antifa will be illegal or something like that. I don't know what they imagine this thing ends with, but that seems to be their fantasy anyway. Okay, so that's where we are with the Proud Boys. They are, of course, in town because, Donald Trump himself has called for everybody to come to town and have a massive, massive, historical, record-breaking protest in Washington, D.C. Stop the steal, All right, so he'll be triggering tomorrow. Well, he'll be triggered tomorrow, and he'll be triggering the reaction among still loyalist Republicans on Capitol Hill who insist that they will object to the counting of the Electoral College votes. It sounds like it comes down to objecting to 5 or 6 states. I never did think of what the 6th state was, but that's the deal. They're going to make some objections. We've been over the mechanics. We'll go over them again. Maybe I can lay the foundation here with an article or two, or at least pieces of articles from Politico, congratulating themselves on scoops, including this one here. Scoop, inside the GOP's strategy to challenge Biden's win and the nail-biter Georgia election. I mean, that's another thing we ought to throw in there. Today, if all goes well, it is the day on which, presumably, the Republicans begin protesting the outcome of the Georgia special elections. If the Democrats come out as the winner of those special elections, I assume that they immediately dispute those results and say that millions and millions of dead people voted and all sorts of voter fraud was being perpetrated by Democrats, none by Republicans, even though they'll later be arrested in small numbers for perpetrating exactly that. But I expect that at this point. I did have some thought that it would be a genius plan, and therefore not really within Donald Trump's wheelhouse, to spend all this time not only making their repeated stupid allegations about fraud and having won Georgia, and they're just getting ridiculous at this point. I mean, they always have been, but it keeps getting worse and worse. You know how Donald Trump is. He just keeps inflating the claims. So now he's, won Georgia by trillions of votes somehow. Anyway, to be beating up on Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp and the rest of them, and fighting with them in such public fashion, I think maybe sets up the scenario in which everybody begins to view the two of them as as enemies and at one another's throat, which certainly could be the case. And then for their election results to begin getting counted tonight, if it is close as it's expected to be, and begins to look like it's coming in favor of Democrats, of course Trump and his cronies will lodge a protest of some kind and insist that there's cheating going on. It would set up perfectly, really, for Raffensperger to say, well, we got to check into everything. You know how it is. Tensions are high down here. We've been talking about this for a long time. I'll have to take a mighty close look at this one. And, what do you know? Yeah, it didn't go Trump's way on the presidential race, so I can't be accused of bias. But this time, it did go Trump's way in the outcome of the Georgia runoff elections, even though, doing things like counting the votes and then comparing the totals, it looks like the Democrats have won. But just to be fair, I was mean to President Trump on the presidential election, but what's done is done. On this one, what can I tell you? Something, both sides. It's a balance. It's a balancing. We want divided government. It's good for America. I don't know. I have no idea at all whether he intends to do that or whether he is, in fact, furious with President Trump and can't wait to certify the election in favor of the Democrats. It's anybody's guess at this point. All right. But what Politico thinks is going on anyway is Senator Ted Cruz and about 9 or 10 other senators joined Republican Representatives Mo Brooks, Jim Jordan, and Andy Biggs on a 50-minute phone call Monday afternoon to discuss their plans to challenge the Electoral College's votes for President-elect Joe Biden. Guess what? Your huddle host, that's, I guess, what they're referring to, their column here as the huddle. This is Olivia Beavers' column here, as she says, with big assists from Melanie, Sarah, and Kyle. The huddle says that they've obtained exclusive details of that private planning call. While the plans are not set in stone, here's what they discussed per a source familiar with the call. So let's run through their 6 bullet points and have Armando call in and see what he makes of this. The senators appeared to agree to object to 3 or 4 state certifications, even though House members are pushing for 6. The 6, I guess, being Arizona, let me count again, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, oh yes, and Nevada, apparently, which I think we should switch over to Nevada. We mentioned that before. Let's see. Bullet point number 2. Lawmakers are primarily focusing their objections on 3 states. I guess that would be the senators. Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, which is the only state, Pennsylvania, I guess, that Republicans have so far secured a valid objection with a set House and Senate objector. Okay, so they've written their plans out for Pennsylvania, and they think they got it right. And what, everything else they couldn't get together on? Senators agreed to raise objections to states with, quote, constitutional deficiencies. So the source noted that might mean Nevada won't make the cut, but the source also noted that senators wanted to wait and see how the debate and votes go after Pennsylvania, and then Arizona and Georgia before deciding if they will take up other states. That's a problematic plan because, of course, the states are done in alphabetical order, and I don't know. I mean, I think the procedure should be that you protest the vote before it's counted, or while they're getting ready to read the results of that. Or I guess you could do it right after they read the results. But if they protest Arizona and then they divide the houses back up to decide what to do with Arizona before proceeding, then they're not going to know, what happens. Well, they'll know what happens with Arizona when they get to Georgia, but they won't be able to make, I don't know how they'll make this decision about later states. But, okay, well, let's see. So, we'll see if we can't go over that again when we talk to Armando. While senators appear to be less eager, maybe I've just misread that. While senators appear to be less eager as House members, less eager as the House member than the House member, whatever, they didn't edit it, to House members to make objections, the source noted that efforts like this can snowball in the House and ultimately put pressure on senators. Not really, but the GOP lawmakers did not discuss how long they wanted to draw out the objections process, but my source tells me that the senators weren't excited about debating past midnight, although the law here, 3 U.S. Code 16, allows for recesses to occur, so they think they could solve this issue. That could solve this issue for them. It doesn't need to be finished, by the way, on January 6th. I don't know why they think that. They're just simpletons and don't know how to read this stuff. Lastly, Senator Josh Hawley was not on the phone call, with my source describing him as a wild card in this process. Hawley was the first senator to join House Republicans in objecting to Congress's certification. I don't even know if that's actually true. But we'll examine maybe the timeline with it. I think he just, he certainly doesn't want to be teamed up with anybody in this. He wants to be free to do whatever the hell he wants and for nobody to get any of the supposed glory that goes along with making this objection. All right, wow, we've got the volume turned up way too loud here, but let me answer the thing and then work on the system applications to turn the volume back down. Okay, hey Armando, how you doing? Oh, did we lose you? I think we did. All right, well, try again there and we'll connect up once again. I don't know, I had the volume turned up all the way, and now I remember what I was turning it up about. I was boosting the volume trying to hear Trump on his recorded call yesterday. Armando, how are you doing?
Hey, good morning.
Okay, all right, you're all set here. I'm reading through the Politico folks' idea of what they're being told is going to happen by the people who are planning the objections tomorrow. Although I'm not certain that they have any real idea, either at Politico or among the supposed planners, how any of this works. But maybe I think they might have. One group anyway may have talked to a parliamentarian or two about how this thing works. We still stand in pretty much the same position, though. Although everybody's kind of dropping the line about "don't worry about it, it's fine," and getting to it won't work, so you shouldn't worry about that.
I'm not worried about it
worry about
in terms of what the result is, but obviously it's worrying for other reasons.
Yeah, which is that if they ever won the both houses of Congress, they could, by this reckoning, just change the outcome of a presidential election if they didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually something that I don't know when you want to talk about it, but the Section 15 of the Electoral Count Act is unconstitutional in its objections portions because
you have mentioned that. Yeah.
There's two Democratic senators. Schatz last night said, we're just like notary publics. We don't get to say no.
Yes.
And I said, I think that's what the 12th Amendment says, but that's not what Section 15 says. So you need to fix that. Zoe Lofgren this morning, who is actually a teller, said it on Morning Joe this morning, basically the same thing, that, Congress has no power to reject electoral votes.
Yes. I realize now we're bumped up against our break here. But, yeah, go ahead. Take the last 30 seconds or so.
I'll hold that on the other side.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So poorly timed on my part there. Sorry about that. But we'll take this up after the break. Okay, yes. And I think we've mentioned at some point all the tellers are pretty much who we expected. There's no surprises. They didn't put any of the plotters on the board. There's only 4 tellers. All is as it's supposed to be. We'll be right back. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, and I've learned that I either need to update these announcements more often or stop saying that the announcements are brand new. What's not new is that this message, too, is a call for your support in keeping the Kagro in the Morning show on the air. My thanks go out to all of you who do support the show through your donations. The stats say that Kagro in the Morning fans download our program about 2,000 times each weekday, but our donors make up only about 8% of our daily listeners. Patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it simple to make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. If we're helping keep you sane during the Trump era, consider what that's worth. $1 a day? 50 cents? One thin dime? We do about 20 shows a month, so pick a number, do the math, and head to patreon.com/KagroX to let us know. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We are with Armando. We started in on a discussion and all of a sudden realized, oh, yes, we have to take a break. Do we really have to? I mean, it's not constitutionally required.
I think it's a good idea. It gives people structure.
Yes, true, and that's important to cling to these days. So, yes, the tellers we mentioned, the usual practice these days is the chair and ranking minority member of the House Administration Committee, which just basically deals with House business and all the nuts and bolts of running the House. And on the Senate side, they combine that with the Rules Committee, the Rules and Administration Committee. The Rules Committees have different roles in the two houses. There's not really that much for the Senate Rules Committee to do. They don't have special rules for each bill. They don't have to have a hearing on every bill that's coming to the floor, and they rarely change those Senate rules anyway. So they combine the two. So it's Zoe Lofgren and Rodney Davis is the name of the ranking minority member on the House Administration Committee. And on the Senate side, Roy Blunt and Amy Klobuchar. So they are who they are, and they appointed who they usually appoint. You were going to make a point here that about the organizational skills and forethought of the group that's making or planning these challenges. Though they've planned the challenges both here in Congress and in court, this is something that they seem to be reading the manual as they're driving here.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking if I was a QAnon Trump supporter, I would have been much more effective than them because what is the point of all this? So if I were them, I would have made McCarthy name Gohmert or whoever they wanted to be a teller and let him make a spectacle out of the whole teller thing and says, I reject the Georgia electors or the Arizona electors. And, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I personally don't know what happens in that case. I mean, I'm sure there is Robert's Rules of Order or something that covers it. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's sort of outside of Robert's rules, when it's something so specific to the electoral vote. But yeah, I mean, the tellers technically, apparently, just so everybody knows, that the nuts and bolts of it are that the speaker and I guess the president pro tem actually is or president of the Senate appoint the tellers, but it's typically done at the recommendation of they split things up and the
party leaders,
right? The Democrats get to name one and Republicans get to name one from each of the houses, and the party leaders are the ones to whom it falls to say, I would nominate this person. Now it's now rote for these reasons, or for some reason anyway, to name these particular positions, whoever holds these positions, as tellers. But I guess technically at some point, the QAnon people and everybody else could have prevailed on McCarthy to tell the speaker, our nominee is Louis Gohmert, our nominee is, Pickett, Andy Biggs, any of the other objectors, or one of the new QAnon lunatics, or something like that. The speaker is empowered by my read of the procedure and the statute to say, well, I'm just not going to accept your nomination, but they should have made a big spectacle of it and said, we're being, this is our choice. How dare you,
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Isn't this all performative? So I actually thought that was because there's not a rule you can point to that says Louis Gohmert has to accept the count. I think
that's the
I didn't do any study on this, but I do know, having visited Parliament at one point in my life, that they have tellers too when there's a division of the House on a vote. One of them walks through one side, the others walk through the other side, and they count up who walked through, which is, at least obviously, it's just pomp and circumstance. Someone knows the count, but. I don't know if there's a history or a parliamentary precedent in England that tellers disagreed with on the numbers. Maybe there has been. I don't know what happens if that happens.
Yeah, I haven't studied that, but again here and so the role here is the tellers in the electoral vote count are supposed to, in order, they one at a time. They're being handed the papers by the vice president if he chooses to preside as president of the Senate. Supposedly, it says in the statute, he's supposed to open the electoral vote certificates. They're already open. I mean, there's already right there. You could be saying, this is unconstitutional. But I don't know. Maybe they'll do that too. But they're already open. They hand them to him. The vice president looks at it and hands it to whoever comes up. He probably has no idea.
Or he doesn't look at it. He just opens.
I guess so. They're already open. So, I mean, he turns the paper around in his hand and hands it to one of the tellers. And they seem to have a certain order that they go in, which is to say the chair of the Senate Rules Committee takes it first. Then the chair of the House Administration Committee goes. Then the ranking Senate member. Then the ranking House member. So that's the order they take them, and then the tellers go to the microphone and say, Mr. President, because he's presiding over this thing, I have this is the certificate of the state of Alabama. And
the first one's going to be Arizona when there's going to be a to-do. So it's, Arizona.
Well, I guess, is that the first one that they'll object to?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Right. And that's
Alabama's
third.
First.
Alabama's first. Right. Arizona's next in line. But what normally happens? You say certificate of the state of Alabama, and then they announce it appears to be regular in form and authentic, which is the way of saying, okay, I have the real certificate here. And it appears there from that, in this case for Alabama, Donald J. Trump of, well, they list him as New York or Florida now. I don't know. Got the electoral votes, blah, 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 Mike Pence, etc. And then they read it. That's it. And then the tellers, the other jobs.
For any objections?
Yeah, or it doesn't even, right. Without objection, blah, blah, blah. Right. We move forward. The tellers, the other tellers, presumably somewhere have a scratch pad. They make notes with numbers on it because they're supposed to add up the numbers at the end. But I'm sure
there's some clerk of the House or the Senate or two of them, and they write down the number.
The next one goes, and right,
it's funny.
So then Alaska goes, and then Arizona, which is the first one to be objected to. By the way, because of the order, that certificate ordinarily will be handed to Amy Klobuchar, who's going to read it.
I think,
it's going to be right.
The Klobuchar thing, I think Lofgren is going to be the Democrat from the Senate. At least she said she was a teller.
Oh, she's a House.
No, she's a Senate. So
Lofgren? No, she isn't.
Oh, you're right. House, correct.
Yeah, I think Ann Coulter made that mistake once.
Oh God, boy,
you're in trouble now.
I sound like a doofus. Anyway, you're right. So yes, it would be Klobuchar.
So Klobuchar is going to get this thing, and she's going to read it correctly and say that Joe Biden won Arizona. I don't know how the rest of it goes. Somebody else actually worked it out, and I don't think that any of the protested states fall into the hands of any Republicans anyway. But so that would probably have flopped. But I guess what we're talking about here is supposing Louis Gohmert does get himself named the teller and is handed the Arizona or Pennsylvania or Georgia or any state for that matter, right? Any state that went for Biden. What do you do if he says let's say he's handed one that says it's for Biden and he says, hey, this isn't regular in form or authentic. This one is, and it's in my briefcase, and it says Trump won. Or you get one that says Biden on it and say it's regular and authentic, and it says Trump won. Now, that one will be harder to pull off. Everyone will say, I'm from that state. No, he didn't. But
before you get there, though, the funniest thing, I think even before the counting starts, is this theory. Jenna Ellis of Trump's elite strike force, the parking ticket lady, as I call her, has a new plan. Oh. And it would actually start before the counting. She proposes that Pence announces that he doesn't have certificates from the, correct certificates from the 6 states that are being contested, and that he has sent a message to the state legislatures of those states.
Oh.
to submit the proper certifications.
Okay. Well, that's another possibility. Yeah, right.
No, it's not. I mean, he has no power to do that.
No, he doesn't. I mean, but I'm saying, like, suppose he goes crazy, or like in SpongeBob SquarePants, Plankton is controlling his brain.
People look at him and say, "What are you even talking about?"
We have those. Oh, I didn't realize we had those. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, presumably at some point, if you do something completely loony, there could be an objection to that, and a division into the two houses, and the House of Representatives says that's not what's happening, or what. But I'll save the other options for later. But I mean, basically, all we're talking about, all of the Republican plans are, what if we just said something different? What if we just? How about if we tell the vice president? I just checked the Constitution, and it says we're not supposed to count the electoral votes. I'm just supposed to say who won, and it's us, me. What do you do? I don't know.
Al Gore should have thought of that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just don't see Pence even doing that. It's just ridiculous.
Typically not that kind of guy.
But that's Jenna Ellis. That's Trump's attorney.
Yeah,
and
that's
of course,
a good plan.
The thing that's interesting about it is,
right.
By all accounts, yesterday Pence and Trump met, and Trump tried this out on him.
Hey, what do you say?
We don't know precisely what he said, but it doesn't sound like it was. I don't think Pence encouraged him, because at the rally last night he said he hopes Pence comes through for him, and he's not going to like him so much if he doesn't.
All right. Were you right? Was it
Literally,
the
that's what he
longest
said.
speech of Trump's career last night, or did he wrap it up quicker?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, well.
It
was a good idea,
He was
a good
deflated, and it was really low energy, to coin a phrase. He only went for like an hour and 40 minutes, which, it's obviously a very long time, but it's not his record long. He went over 2 hours at CPAC. So my prediction was wrong on that.
Okay.
But anyway, let me, after I've interrupted you with my little story about what Pence could do before the counting starts, you're at Arizona, and your hypothetical is Louis Gohmert, if he had been nominated, would say, I don't accept this certificate as teller.
He could, I guess, he could say that, or this might be the method by which they introduced the fake certificates, which may or may not have showed up anywhere. I don't know what happened to them.
I mean, just as a procedural matter, the only certificates to be considered are those that have been delivered to the President of the Senate and the National Archivist, who on January 3rd, now we talked about this, but on January 3rd, submitted what the National Archivist says are these certificates. And as everybody knows, there's a website you can look at those certificates yourself. And those presumably are the only ones that the National Archivist submitted. But could Pence pretend that those fake electors in Arizona, whichever ones he wants to recognize and say, and hand them to a teller?
I don't know how he gets one in his hands, but I guess he could. I mean, presumably the clerks are handing him what the archivist has handed over. And I guess we haven't considered the possibility of a lunatic rogue archivist yet. but I guess it could happen.
But the archivists they are pretty transparent. You can actually look at the certificates they say they've received. And they rejected.
At the minimum, you would say, I didn't see, this didn't get scanned and put on your website. That can't be the right one. For weeks, you've been saying the one that says Biden one is the correct one. Well, I messed that up, I guess. So
I guess
that's all you have.
I mean, anything's possible in this world, but that's not.
Right. So
I think it would have been interesting if you had been checking the website to see if they were putting on two certificates.
I was looking.
They did not.
I have not seen it. I'm dying to see this other certificate because at least one of them, apparently, they're possibly in legal trouble for photoshopping the state seal onto it. So we'll see where that goes. But I mean, that's where we are. It's a thing that somebody could blurt out something incorrect, wrong, and unsubstantiated, and then it'll be a question of, well, it's one of those situations. Will people go, what should we do? I don't know. Or will somebody speak up and say, come on, this is crazy. I have to object to this. And again, this joint session really has no, there's not supposed to be any opportunity for anybody to say anything with the minimal exception of jumping up and saying, I object.
My objection in writing.
And you don't even think that they should be able to do that, I think.
I think it's unconstitutional. Yes, I think that the 3 U.S.C. Section 15, the objection provision that provides for objecting to certificates that comply with Section 5 and 6. Section 5 is the safe harbor that everybody used to care about. Section 6 is the certificate that's required to be sent by the governor of the state. And in my view, if you take Section 5 in particular seriously, it says it's final and conclusive in the count. Not just that the electors are final, the votes they cast are conclusive. That's what it says textually. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. So the reality, you could if you had a real parliamentarian, or even somebody who they could just rule your objection is out of order. These certificates are covered by 3 U.S.C. Section 5 and are final. You cannot object to them.
Okay. So
I don't know if someone can make that point of order.
I don't know.
Could a Democrat make that and say,
sure,
and who would vote on that?
Yeah.
Should it be the joint session?
Well, the joint session, that's one of the problems with it, is that there's no provisions for them to debate or vote on anything. It's not a real thing. A joint session is just this convenient meeting of the two houses, but the two houses can't vote on anything together. Yeah, if they want to vote or debate on anything, they have to split up and go back to their chambers alone and vote that way. The joint session is just, we want you both to have the same information. Which I guess is probably, at the heart of your, at least partially, at the heart of your objection. The joint sessions are supposed to be observational only, essentially, because there's no provision for debate or voting. They don't have any power to do anything acting together. There's no mechanism for them to count votes or to debate anything. When you make your objection, you make it in writing. And, sometimes members try to speechify a little bit in proclaiming that they have such an objection. But with a normal presiding officer, they say, no more speechifying. I understand. You have your objection. It's written, yes. Is it signed by a member of the House and a member of the Senate? Yes or no? And then that's it. And then if it is, right, at that point, they're supposed to split up and go to their separate chambers and debate. Do we accept this objection or reject it? Which is why I don't understand the plan as outlined by Politico, where they're saying the real strategery here in the Senate is, well, depending on how the votes go on Pennsylvania, we'll decide on whether or not to object to Arizona and Georgia. Except Arizona and Georgia come before Pennsylvania.
Work. They do it alphabetically by rule and by law.
Yeah. So I don't know what they mean.
I did the math. Exactly. Once you're past Michigan, I believe. No, it's Nevada. Once you get past Nevada, it doesn't matter anymore. So even if they want all their objections on Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, Biden still wins.
Okay. So that's a magic point to watch for, I guess, tomorrow too. Yeah, and then other than that, it's just a question of how many states do you want to object to, and do you get 2 hours? The statute says 2 hours of debate in both houses on each objection. So,
and each member is limited to 5 minutes of argument.
Yes, right, that too. So that's normal-ish for a regular debate in the House when there's no special rule designating anything else. So, I don't know. They may do this with a bunch of states. There are some people that are like, we should object to every single state and have
Louis Gohmert
52-hour
has
debates.
already signed his objection, and he did it all in one, which is weird. In my opinion, you're supposed to do it for 6 individually. But he signed it. It's on Twitter somewhere. Not Louis Gohmert, Mo Brooks.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right. Our original.
The original guy. So Mo Brooks, I saw him sign one document, and he seemed to list the 6 states he's objecting to, which I think is an improper way of doing it. You have to do it one by one.
Yeah, that could be. Well, that'll be fun.
I guess he could just say, here, I refer you to my previous objection when the state comes up, I guess.
I don't know. I guess he could print out new ones, whatever. But I'll make my first objection, and I guess they could dismiss the objection they said it's on improper in form, and then come back, and he could, I guess, at that point, object again. Well, now I just object to Arizona.
Okay, but let's go back to what the joint session is.
Yeah, all right.
There is a presiding officer. It is the vice president, the president of the Senate.
Yeah.
And what if he makes a ruling that your objection is out of order? These are Section 5, Section 6 compliant. They're final.
Yeah.
There's no provision for objecting to this certification.
Yeah.
Obviously, Pence isn't going to do that, but.
Right, but essentially it would be like some sort of nuclear option for a joint session.
I'm just curious. If he can't do that, how could he possibly have the power to do anything else?
I don't know, but since
because
he doesn't,
you tell me, you're the parliamentarian expert.
But
if someone does something, and the person who's presiding in the session, says nope, you're out of order. We do not take your point of order, or whatever the argument is. I mean, that's pretty normal. They do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that and say, sorry, I'm overruling the parliamentarians, or I'm just ruling from the chair that this isn't right, or whatever the ruling he needs is.
Yeah.
The difficulty
I'm just saying
is,
they make rulings, right?
well,
I mean, even based on the
I
parliamentarians'
guess.
advice, there is no parliamentarian to the joint session, as you said.
Well, yeah, I don't know what there is for that. I mean, I imagine there is a parliamentarian available to say this, and I don't know which one you would listen to, the House or the Senate one. But the difficulty. My first thought was, well, what are you going to do if he just rules something totally different? Because there's not even any mechanism for objecting and then having a vote of whatever this body is, this joint session, to say whether the vice president is right or wrong.
Exactly. It said, I need a motion to overrule the chair's ruling. Well,
and they would say, I don't have any, there's no mechanism for taking a vote here. As it turns out,
so
they
obviously
split up
none
again.
of that can happen. So the objection comes up.
Yes.
Pursuant to 3 U.S.C. Section 15, and the argument I'm making that you can't object 5 and 6 is made in each House of Congress in the debate, presumably, is the argument. But that's wrong. You can't. What happens then when a particular? And it's not going to happen this time, but we're just talking hypothetically. What if they said, "Oh, we don't care about Section 5 and Section 6. We're going to sustain the objection and not accept the electoral votes."
Yeah, I mean, okay. I guess what actually happens here. Now, this is useful only, I guess, in this situation because it's a joint session, and because the joint session is happening in the House chamber. In order to have a joint session, the two houses need to call for it, and the House needs to essentially to invite the Senate to the House chamber for this session. So if Pence were to simply say, to hell with everything, I rule the opposite, at that point, of course, it would begin with somebody making some sort of objection, and he might say, look, there's no opportunity for you to even object, at which point Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the House and in control of the House chamber, says, essentially, that's it, this joint session is over. The House, as a body, withdraws from it, and you're in our chamber. We are expelling you from the House chamber. House Sergeant at Arms, escort the Senate out of the chamber and bar the doors to their reentry.
I just thought of something.
Oh?
The Speaker of the House would become president on January 20th if there's not a new certified president-elect.
Right.
What if the Speaker of the House just never called the joint session?
That
just
is,
said, you know what?
yeah.
I'm supposed to do it, but I don't care. I want to be president.
That's interesting. Like from a totally different, not in this situation, but in any random situation, said, I'm not going to allow it. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I guess if the Speaker of the House has the backing of a majority of the House at that point, yeah, that's a good one. I guess that's something that needs some consideration.
I'm gonna be the next president. I don't care what any of you say, and I've got the votes.
Yeah, and if he or she does have the votes to do it, then you can't say, "Oh my God, the Speaker of the House is crazy. We have to replace her immediately." And,
yeah, of course. I mean, look, we're in La La Land, but we've been in La La Land forever.
Sure, right? Why not? No, it's worth thinking about.
If the vice president can declare himself the winner, why can't the Speaker say, "Well, I'm not going to let you declare yourself the winner. I'm never going to have a session."
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I thought, by the way, I just throw this out there. Somebody else had a very interesting idea too, which was everyone loves to remind the crowd on every 2 years when they get together and vote on the Speaker that remember the Speaker of the House doesn't have to be a member of the House. It can be anybody. And if you knew something like crazy like this was coming up and that the Republicans
you could make Joe Biden the Speaker of the House.
Right, and then just wait. And then, right, and so at that point, Joe Biden becomes, what do you know? Hey, he's president after all because he's Speaker of the House. Now I resign now as Speaker of the House, and they have another election, and Nancy Pelosi, wonder of wonders, is elected Speaker of the House, just as everything should be. Joe Biden, so, you can always go that way and say, you know what, fine. The vice president can rule however he wants to rule. You don't want to set that precedent, obviously. But you're all kicked out of here. There's no joint session. No electoral votes are going to be counted ever. in this election, but and at this point now, Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House. What can you do? Well, you can say, you know what, we're having another election. We just call it, whether it's with Pelosi resigning as Speaker or not. Just say we're having another vote, and we elect Joe Biden as Speaker of the House. And I'm just going to be, for now, a member of the House from San Francisco. And then on January 21st, if there's another opportunity, we'll see what we do.
Well, no, I'll be renamed on January 21st.
Yeah, right.
In fact,
that's what you would end up doing.
Because the current speaker just became president.
Right. So we've got a vacancy.
And now I can go be speaker again.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is that. I know everybody's sort of been relying on, well, they won't do this because even if they do, Nancy Pelosi will be president. That'll be even worse for them, and they won't want that. But it's not even necessarily true that Nancy Pelosi will be president. If you realize what's going on, you just, I guess, get together and all the Republicans vote for somebody else, of course. I vote for Donald Trump for Speaker of the House, which I guess they could do. And that would be interesting, right?
Right?
If they had a majority. But I guess that's just basically the same problem over again. Another route to the same problem that you were discussing is,
Section 15 is
right.
wrong.
This might be a time bomb that they didn't realize was going to go off because, again, when they're designing these laws, they're like, how much total lunacy should we really take into consideration here?
Well, I mean, at the very least, you need to be consistent with the 12th Amendment. My point being, it's not that they didn't take into account lunacy. It's that what they did in Section 15 with the objections violates the 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment is actually pretty clear, pretty stark. It says that the President and Senate shall open and the votes shall be counted. The votes shall be counted in front of the joint session of Congress. Now, you're right in that, I guess, when we come back, we'll talk about what power the House has independently. And there's actually a lot of treatises on what the House and the Senate can do vis-a-vis this session. That's what you're getting at. So we'll talk about that on the other side.
Okay. Another break coming up here. But we'll return to discuss it again. But yeah, they really needed to do some thinking about what to do about nutcases.
Obviously Congress has the power
hang on.
The necessary proper clause to effectuate 3 U.S.C. Section 5 and even arguably the 12th Amendment.
Well, we're back in now at this point. We just have that 1 minute break. But welcome bach, everybody, to the show. We're just starting in. Let's just start that conversation over again, if you like.
What I was saying is there's a much cited law review article from the University of Florida by a guy named Siegel, where he went through the whole Electoral Count Act. And he talks about what can the houses do. Is this Congress acting? And of course, his conclusion is no. Which I think is similar to yours. This joint session doesn't create any power to do anything.
Yeah.
Each body has to act independently, and in fact, no rules can be imposed on each body by this joint session. So, it's a morass, and I know you've got Joan in 30 minutes, so I don't know how much,
maybe even less.
How much far down this rabbit hole you want to go. But I think if you're playing that game, I think there's clearly things that, say, the speaker could name himself the winner, the vice president could name himself the winner if the speaker lets them have the session. All those things are crazy, but it all stems from the fact that Section 15 is very flawed. Which is what I'm getting at. The objections provision is not consistent with the 12th Amendment. Which says textually, the certificate shall be opened and the vote shall be counted. Not can be counted or will be counted, shall. That is, it is, you have to do it.
Yeah, so it creates a problem of, you'd think there should be a mechanism for objection in case there's a legit objection. So we've just sort of proceeded as though there was one.
What constitutes a legit objection consistent with the 12th Amendment? I would say this isn't the right. This is a fake certificate.
That would be the sort of thing.
That's why Schatz's tweet is right. You're sort of a notary public.
Yeah.
That's your function. All right. Did you have your proof? Did you have your ID? Where's the governor? Okay, you have your governor card. So, okay, you're the governor. This is your certificate type thing.
Yes, and I'm sure like they have this expansive view of it, like, well, that might be the right certificate, but it shouldn't have been issued in the first place. The governor was mistaken, misled.
I would argue that that's not even allowed to be argued.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, at some point, these line drawing exercises that we have to either be honored or not, and I guess that's why there's the there's a small window, but a window exists. If you believe that the election's been called incorrectly, that's, the flurry of activity we saw in the courts before December 14th, and even before, after December 14th, but before the governor actually, certifies and sends a certificate of ascertainment, that's a month and a half.
Right, but let's go beyond that, because you go to the other provision of the Constitution, which says the electors shall be selected in a manner prescribed by the state legislature, and that's the election law, right?
Yeah.
And each of these election laws have provisions that the governor or whoever certifies. Yeah. They all do. So not accepting the certificate violates that provision of the Constitution as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously got to be some sort of window of opportunity for review and objection if you think that, if you have evidence that the completely wrong result is being called here, and presumably some of these people believe it.
I don't agree with that. You don't get to actually decide whether it was completely wrong how they did it. You get to decide if this is the authentic certificate from the governor of the state.
At the point that it's been issued. I'm talking about, like, you have the window from, in this case, November 3rd to maybe December 14th.
Sure.
Yeah,
you,
to say
you have whatever
the
provision is provided you under the manner prescribed by the state legislature. As I started telling you in the beginning.
That's true, too. That also is part of what gets prescribed.
Georgia election law provides a mechanism by which a candidate for president can object to the certification of a race. You go to court, you say, please delay or disallow the certification because A, B, C, D, whatever your argument is, and you win or lose in that court. And that's all you have. That's your remedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what we knock the founders for having done a shoddy job from time to time on all sorts of things. But I think this maybe casts them in a slightly better light. I think that they were at least capable of saying, look, all kinds of things can go wrong. All kinds of crazy people can make objections and insist that the elections were fixed or rigged or whatever. But we're saying there's a process for figuring that out, and the process ends on a date certain, because lines have to be drawn and authority has to be respected at some level. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to constitute a government. You either accept that the shot you had from early November to mid-December is plenty to make your objection. And if you lose in court over and over and over again, that's just the way it is. Just, you've lost. Innocent people sometimes do get sent to jail, but they become convicts, and the law treats them that way. When the jury convicts them and when all appeals have been exhausted, there's no more opportunity for this stuff. You're going to have to start serving your prison time. Now, you can even object afterwards and keep filing appeals later, but at some point, we call you a convict and put you in jail. And at some point, this election is over, and you've lost, and hey, maybe you even did genuinely win and get robbed somehow. But in order to get to that point, you have to go through so many stops in court and so much officialdom simply saying, this is getting our imprimatur now. This is the way the election has come out. That's it.
Look, I mean, the Constitution says the manner prescribed by the state legislature. Yeah. That's what the point is. Now, the one scenario where you could argue Congress has to decide on certifications, and it's I think a great example because it actually incorporates a lot of what you're saying. It was Hawaii in 1960. Everyone knows this old story, or maybe you don't. I'll repeat it quickly for you. In the initial count, Nixon won Hawaii by 100 votes or so. Yeah. Kennedy went to court. Court ordered a recount. They did a recount. Kennedy won the recount. Okay. Meanwhile, the because of state law and federal law, the Hawaii governor had submitted a certification that had Nixon winning. Mm-hmm. But then after the court ordered recount, he submitted a new one with Kennedy winning.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So there's all right. Well, which certificate do we have to pick? There were 2 submitted.
Yeah.
So that's legitimately okay. One of these is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone says, well, Nixon decided. Nixon didn't really decide. Nobody cared. They said, okay, I'm going to take the Kennedy one. It really wasn't a precedent. Really wasn't anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, there are definitely legitimate situations that you can think of for why there would have to be some determination made, but they should be very limited. And the idea of, well, I think aliens stole it is really just not, I don't think, contemplated by the system. And you're just dealing with the situation where somebody says, but I really think every stage of review has been wrong. Well, I don't know if I can help you. You fought it out in the election. You lost the election. You fought it out in the recount, the automatic recount, and you lost that. You fought it out in the recanvassing, and you lost that. You fought it out and even got, for some reason, Georgia granted you some sort of signature verification audit, and you lost that. Then you went to court and you lost that. And you went to the appeals court and you lost that. And you went to the Supreme Court and you lost that. And they're saying, surely the Constitution affords us one more shot. And by the way, a shot that we also argue is allowed to overrule all the checks and balances that have come before. And change the, designation of the chief executive of the United States. That feels like, I feel like if our framers, if our founding fathers had intended that to be part of the mechanism, I think it probably would have come up in the debate at some point. Well, what about if all of this could get overruled with one roll of the dice? Should we not say anything about that? No. Let's let them discover that for themselves in 2000 something. Really? But no, I intended it to be in there. I just don't want to write it down because though this is a written constitution, I think some parts of it should be secret and Kabbalistic. What about you guys? Well, we are Freemasons. That does sound like a good idea. Should we write it here or should we write it on a document that we hide for Nicolas Cage to find? I don't know.
I like that. Right?
Look, it's gotta be in there if it's gonna, you can't say that the Constitution has a secret self-destruct button that only Louis Gohmert can find. That can't be real.
Yes, it's not real. It's nonsense.
Okay. All right. So we agree. There you go. Easy.
Come on.
Right.
All of this is just crazy. But we've lived through 5 years of crazy. Congress says no to wall money, and everybody pretends Trump could just divert money by declaring an emergency. That's insane. But the Supreme Court said, so.
Yeah. Well,
frankly, I hope Biden's not shy to use it. This new power that's given the president to declare an emergency and move money where he wants.
We're gonna have a lot of emergencies, I guess. And then a very sedate suddenly Supreme Court. I don't see any emergency. What are you talking about?
Exactly. All of a sudden they'll relearn. Like in the new defense bill, they apparently tighten the language on what can be declared an emergency or something like that. Okay. I think Biden says, I know you said that, but I'm going to keep doing it. What are you going to do?
I guess.
Supreme Court says I can do whatever I want.
Well, we will see about that, and of course, then we'll remind them. Oh, I thought you said that judges shouldn't legislate from the bench. The old ones, yes, they shouldn't. These new ones are great. One of them loves beer, so of course he should be legislating from the bench. Didn't you know? What? I don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know. I guess all right. So now we get a chance to see some of this in action. I think it should be fairly anticlimactic tomorrow.
Well, it's
But-
going to be. I think there's two questions, and we sort of broached it a little bit about how many they're going to do. And they didn't.
yes,
They
right.
didn't. The article started it. Yeah, but we don't want to do Arizona. But they have to do Arizona. They're not going to skip Arizona. And we already know Bo Brook is going to do it. So one of the crazy senators, Tuberville or somebody's going to object to Arizona. I don't know. Josh Hawley, God knows what they're doing.
Yeah, he won't
Cruz
share his
faction.
plans.
I think a lot they'll drop off after the first one because, and I think the debates will get shorter. And this question of recess that you mentioned before, yes, they could declare recess, but my understanding would be there'd have to be agreement to recess. No.
No. I mean, they're just to recess and stretch it out until tomorrow. I guess. Yeah, I imagine you'd have to have agreement from both houses. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not certain whether they would get that.
Well, I mean, I've read the recess language, and I don't have it in front of me. I think it's in 16 or 17, 316 or 317, Section 16 or 17 of the Electoral Count Act that discusses, one house declaring a recess. And I'm like, well, when do they do that?
Yeah, I don't know.
After they turn down an objection? Because that actually says that you have to immediately reconvene in the joint session after the objections are rejected. So I think there's a real lagunas, real holes in all of this process. But I mean, if McConnell says I'm recessing, I guess I'll recess it. If Pelosi says it, then you run your own body, and I'm not here anymore. What are you going to do? You can't have a joint session without me.
Yeah.
But I think just as a practical matter, it would be stupid of McConnell, who apparently wants this to be as quiet as possible, and Pelosi, who just wants it over, to agree to a recess. Why would they agree?
I don't know. I mean, unless they just felt it was, look, no damage done here. You want to stretch this out into another day and lose then? But I don't know that they would feel that way. They might say,
why would I make their life easier and let them have 2 days of publicity?
Yeah. I don't know that she would agree to it, but I don't know. By the way, new across the transom here, roll call reporting that Chuck Grassley, Senate President Pro Tem, says that, look at this, so new, Iowa Senator says he and not Vice President Mike Pence will preside over the certification of electoral votes. Since we don't expect him to be there. I didn't even realize that. Now, you did call that. I also just put aside... he also says Grassley says
suggested it for Pence, and now he can yell at Grassley for not overruling the certifications.
That's true, and now this is interesting too. Grassley said he will listen to debate, which there isn't supposed to be any, and that, quote, it would be really wrong for me to say I have made my mind up. Now, he could mean I'll listen to debate in the Senate when we resolve into the Senate to debate these objections. If he means I'll open up the floor for debate in the joint session, that's where Pelosi says, all right, the session's over. I might come back to it later, but
I don't think that's
get out. All right, so I don't know. They don't have a story written up yet. That's astonishing, really, at this late a date to find out that Pence is not going to show. Because, I mean, why was he in a meeting with Trump at all?
Well, I think just in terms of the politics of Georgia, because of the Pence card nonsense, he wanted to announce it as late as possible. I would have waited till the afternoon if I was him.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he didn't announce it and Grassley did. I got no idea what was going on, but that really is something that he would show up down there too for the rally and for Trump to say, well, if he doesn't do it, I'm not going to like him too much or whatever it was that he said. And then like the next morning, you know what? I'm not even going. Like that's this is really something, and I don't know whether anybody has ever missed it before or not, but
Humphrey did.
Okay,
69.
But I don't, certainly not in this fashion. Like I'm going, and I'm going to do something crazy and never mind, I'm not going at all.
I'm not sure why Humphrey missed it. I mean, I don't think there was anything
Not
controversial.
Like this,
he had lost. He wasn't contesting the election. It was no different than Gore, Nixon presiding over that, and of course George H.W. Bush presided over his victory.
Mm-hmm. So this is, well, what can I tell you? This is what they now Pence says he's going to do. This is why they should have objected to swearing in all the new senators on the 3rd and just said nobody's taking the oath. There's 67 senators, and that's it. And there are 36 Democrats and 31 Republicans at this point. And the new Senate President pro tem is Pat Leahy. All right, let's go. Now we'll have a joint session.
Again, this is what's crazy about these rules. I think you are the one who said, they don't have to be sworn in. They're senators by virtue of operation of law.
No, I say the opposite. I say they have to be sworn in order to take office. And apparently that's the feeling in the Senate and in the House as well, that the oath is not just a formality, that you have to take the oath and in the Senate sign the oath book in order to serve. That since the Civil War and the expulsion cases there, you have to actually take the oath means something, and they expelled people for refusing to take it or for violating it.
I'd have to look at the precedents and see, but it seems to me that if you won and your certificate of victory is presented to the Senate, that should be enough. But what do I know?
Well, yeah, I mean,
of course, the Senate is the judge of its own election.
Yeah, that too, and part of the procedure goes, we'll examine your certificates, and if they're okay, then we'll give you the oath, and then you're a senator.
Right.
And I guess
I reject your certificate because that was a fraudulent election.
That's what I was saying. Sorry, everyone has alleged fraud, and so we have to figure out what's going on here.
Ironically, the Senate does have that power. I mean, that's an express power. The vice president the president of the Senate and counting the presidential certificates doesn't have the power.
Right.
The Constitution gives the Senate and the House that power. It does not give that to the joint session, frankly, or the president of that joint session.
Right.
And
that's what Chip Roy was saying on Sunday. Was hey, I object to the to giving the oath to the new members from the disputed states. We shouldn't accept their certificates and administer the oath at this point.
And I dispute every state.
He didn't, but he should have. By the way,
Texas, the governor of Texas changed the rules of the election and he did.
Yes.
By the way. Therefore, John Cornyn, you're no longer a senator. Goodbye.
All right. Well, that's the claim everywhere else. Yeah, they didn't make that claim for some reason in Texas because they knew they were going to win those seats, I guess. Chip Roy, by the way, back in the news this morning, just by way of keeping you up to date. GOP rep, and it's him, warns of, quote, full-scale hot conflict. Why? If the Dems win the Georgia Senate races. So if they legitimately win the Georgia Senate races, Chip Roy, who was, being, I guess, lauded for his logical consistency and whatever else, yesterday now says, or said on Monday night, there would be dire consequences if the Democrats win in Georgia and therefore Democrats gain control of the chamber. He says if we have a democratically controlled Senate, we're now basically at full-scale hot conflict in this country. I'm not certain why legitimate elections for Mr. Logical Consistency lead to hot shooting civil war, but, I guess that he's logically consistent until he isn't. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't think he became anybody's hero on Sunday anyway, so it's just fine. He's not yet at Brad Raffensperger territory. Okay. Well, I think this sets things up nicely, at least for what's supposed to happen with respect to the count tomorrow.
And what you'll see, their zone of the houses will split. There'll be 2 hours of debate, 5 minutes per member. So, frankly, 140 or more Republicans don't get to speak for 5 minutes because there's a 2-hour time limit, and presumably the time would be split for and against 1 hour each, I suppose. So they really have an hour for 140 minutes for 140 members.
Yeah.
So, that gives them each, in my opinion, about 30 seconds each.
Yeah, that's going to be a great fight, and we'll see how they allocate that time and whether or not the QAnon people get a piece of it.
Do they all yield to Jim Jordan? And does Pelosi let them? I would say no.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, I guess they can all yield their time, but with each of them only having 30 seconds, I'd count the discussion of the yielding of time against them. Well, that was 15 seconds right there.
Are you saying you think they absolutely have the right to yield their time?
I think they can yield their time. Yes.
Okay.
But
then they'll probably end up giving somebody 10 minutes.
Maybe.
And then everybody else gets, the sorted others get.
But that requires organization and assent from loudmouth first-term members who thought that they had the right to somehow. I thought I got the filibuster. That's the other place. They don't understand.
But Marjorie Greene will insist on her for a full 5 minutes.
Yes, that's right.
So I think they can have a little problem with the time allocation, which will be funny to watch.
It will be funny, and especially if they say no. You're a new member. They don't say freshman anymore, right? So you're a new member now, and you go to the back of the line, and then they say, "But I'm carrying a gun." So I get 5 minutes. That'll be interesting to see how that one resolves itself.
Well, that is true. And then I don't know if the other side can yield. Who would you want from the Democratic side to be making the main argument, so to speak? And I doubt that many people want to speak on the other side. They just think this is all ridiculous.
Right.
But, there should be someone hopefully articulate and conversant with the issues.
Yeah, right. Well,
to address.
There are some people who would be very good. I'm not certain whether they're motivated to do anything. Like I ordinarily would say, well, how about if we yield some time to Hakeem Jeffries? But then what if he goes up and says, well, we don't want to look backwards and investigate the president. We're, good vibes only, as they say. Like, oh man.
Yeah, I don't know why they even say those things. I mean, whatever you're going to do, don't go around making yourself a target for people to get mad at you.
They need a new go-to phrase for that, which I think the old one, no comment. That works pretty well too.
Right. They said, well, we'll look at it. We'll look at it in the future. I mean, from what I'm hearing, after this count, they adjourned till the 19th.
Yeah. Well, that too. All right. Well, we'll see how they handle things tomorrow. I want to. We'll at the break. We'll make room for Joan so that.
I will absolutely.
Depart. Thank you for coming by.
She'll actually talk about things that are important instead of all this
stuff
that I unfortunately have become obsessed with. But
you can't let it slide because, like we say, there's some serious repercussions that can come from entertaining this. And you got to debate how hard do you want to crack down on this, because otherwise, just do it every time.
Just looking forward, David. This concept of this type of objection is contemplated by 3 U.S.C. Section 15, and even to the point where it says that if both houses agree, they can reject the certification.
Yeah, bad news.
And that's not constitutional. Now, obviously, it's not right, and that should be amended. And I would think that after this disaster, even McConnell wouldn't mind having that limited.
Yeah, maybe.
I think you can get enough Republican Senate votes. If we win in Georgia, then we even get to bring it up, and who cares if McConnell wants to bring it up or not? I feel confident you'll get 10 votes to beat the filibuster.
Okay.
So that's my view of it. But we'll see what happens. I guess. So. Time will tell.
Yeah. And a new update to the Grassley situation. A Grassley spokesman clarified. These guys don't know what's going on. A Grassley spokesman clarifies that the senator does not, quote, have any indication Pence won't be present. Grassley,
he said, is he saying this nonsense?
He said he was just trying to explain that as president pro tempore of the Senate, he would fill the chair if Pence does not show or steps out at points for a break.
We knew that already.
Yeah, okay, but I don't know. Somebody said something wrong somewhere along the line. I guess we'll find out what it really would be astonishing for Pence to not show at this point, but whatever. I mean, when they said it, I believed it because these guys are crazy, and I thought that was just a stupid enough thing that they might try and do. All right. I don't know. So I guess he will be there after all, or Grassley is completely out of his mind. That could also be the case. I don't know what to tell you. It's a sad situation all around. All right. All right. Well, thanks for coming by. We're going to play our music in just a little bit. And then, as we said, we'll clear the field here for Joan for 2024 so she can become president. Maybe we should make her speaker.
Good. Let's go, Georgia.
All right. Yes. Make sure, I don't know, you get out there, and if you have voted and you want to resupply the folks who are waiting online with food and water, Brad Raffensperger will threaten you with arrest, but don't worry about it. There's bigger fish to fry in the end. And what can we say? Go Georgia. Thanks to Armando. And yes, the way is clear for you, Joan. We're all ready. And hey, no pressure, but we're waiting. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. And welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Joan McCarter now stepping in as guest pro tem, replacing Armando, who was not expected to show up, but then he did show up, but now he's left. The latest it didn't change during the commercial break. We're back to Pence is expected to show up, but with no explanation as to why Grassley's office decided to give everybody a lesson, and that we already knew that if he doesn't show up, then the president pro tem is the presiding officer, and so what? But I don't know. Somebody's going to have to check their because
okay. Well, here's the explanation that we've got from who. Karun Demergery, I don't know how. She's somebody from who knows Hill stuff. She says Grassley plans to preside over the Senate debate, the breakout, not the joint sessions, when Pence needs a bathroom or dinner break.
All right. I mean, yeah. Okay.
You know, this could go well over a day long. This could go well into.
I don't know. That's okay. So Grassley wanted to remind everybody that he might get some time on camera or something. Of course, if Pence has to go to the bathroom, God, who cares? No, they should not let him do that.
Cares?
Yeah, right. They should keep a mic on him,
like his boss.
Yeah, right. I guess so. Although we have seen in the era of Zoom meetings that bathroom breaks and, microphones and things can go wrong, but they're having this in the Senate chamber that he doesn't take the microphone with him or anything. So, all right, so that's the big revelation. If Mike Pence leaves to get a drink of water or eat dinner, another old white guy will sit in the chair for some part of the 2 hours, at which point then they'll go back, and then Mike Pence will come out of the bathroom again. All right. Thank you. But,
this could go on 36 hours, they're thinking.
If they object to enough states.
Because of the objections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know? Well, I guess that's the answer. We must know. Or nobody has read the rules. There was an opportunity the other day, as they were, that we should probably even mention that the House has adopted. Of course, they always adopt new rules at the beginning of a new Congress. So did they vote on their rules package yesterday?
Yes, they did. They passed
Okay.
it yesterday.
All right. So that's part of the issue. And then also was a Senate concurrent resolution offered up with rules for how to conduct the joint session. Routine. They usually do that. But they did have the opportunity. They could have at some point, like if McConnell wanted to paper over this as much as he could, they might have offered up and then adopted rules that say all objections will wait to the end and we'll have 1 2 hour debate on all of them.
That would have been nice, wouldn't it?
Might have been smart,
But they have to do it by state.
yeah. Oh, okay. Well, all right.
So I don't know if you could say just blow past Arizona, which is going to be the first state.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Maybe be an objection. We don't know yet which states they're going to be objecting to.
Yes.
And I think probably all of this talk about this is going to take 36, 48 hours might be to try to convince some of these folks that they should limit their objections.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if that'll work with a House, but it does take a House member and a senator for the objection to be heard. So
yeah.
it's still possible the Senate could curtail this a little bit.
Yes. All right. Well, they could do that.
You know, that's going to depend on Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and their pissing match to decide.
Right.
I don't, you know.
And right. And if
It's
they
going to be the worst.
Yeah. And if they actually have to, do a pissing match, then that's when Grassley comes in, and I'll sit in the chair while you guys. Yeah, Hawley is not sharing his plans apparently, and won't tell anybody whether he'll coordinate with this other group or something else will happen. So that'll be real interesting. Phew. And I don't know what to tell you, but so I don't think that they adopted any rules giving them more flexibility in how to deal with the objections. Although I will remind everybody that all it is a maximum. It's a cap of 2 hours of debate. It doesn't say they couldn't reduce that to something less, or that they may debate themselves out and decide, by the third or fourth objection, when they've heard all the arguments again, they may say, all right, well, we'll waive the rest of our time.
You get 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So at any rate, we'll see whether they stretch it out or not. There was among the stupid theories that was out there circulating in the beginning of this, the first couple days when the wackos were just making things up out of whole cloth. Well, the Constitution says it has to be done on January 6th. So if we get past midnight, then there's no president and it's total anarchy, or Trump gets to stay as president. None of that is true. It can go as long as you want, I suppose, except up to the 20th, at which point they say, I don't know whether they even bother finish counting. Even if they could by the 20th, they just say, all right, well, the old term is over, and if we haven't counted, then whoever happens to be Speaker of the House presumably takes over as acting president, and maybe they could. I guess at that point they would continue trying to finish counting the electoral votes because the Speaker of the House is saying, "I'm not supposed to be here." But, yeah. Although there was the fun suggestion made that if things were really getting out of control and it looked like they were going to make things stretch out to the 20th as some sort of weird strategy, then the House could resolve itself and go back and say Pelosi resigns as Speaker, and they have a new Speaker vote and elect Joe Biden as Speaker of the House, and just say, all right, we're going to let that sit while you guys debate whether or not to continue on. That ought to shorten debate some. If you want to continue until January 20th, we'll just inaugurate him from his perch as Speaker of the House instead. Do you prefer that, Republicans, or do you want to give up now? I don't know. That would be fun.
Never give up. They will never
I guess
give up.
not. They would enjoy the show, I'm sure. And as long as it's going on, Josh Hawley's in the news. So I suppose that's your answer. It'll just go on as long as they can. Okay. How about the new rules in the House? Did you get a chance to review
I need to
them?
write it up. I haven't looked in at them really closely. I do know that they've limited, thank goodness, I guess,
Yes. We'll
the
see.
motion to recommit.
Yes.
They've defanged it,
A big
which we have been
thorn.
complaining about for how many years now?
15 or more, probably.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, at least, right? So I don't know. It became a big issue. Well, it was always an issue for me anyway. And I know we made a big deal of it like in following like 2006, because in 2004 and 5 there were some shenanigans going on. But anyway,
that was when early 2000s was when Republicans really decided to weaponize it, I think.
Yeah, and they were really very effective
at least,
at it. They
maybe that's when we just started paying attention to Republicans really trying to.
Yeah, they had right. I suppose it's true. They had done so before, and I imagine it was a weapon. It was defanged a little bit at some point early on. I'm sure that the Newt Gingrich, even their pre-Republican Revolution guys, were making use of it strategically. And,
I don't remember that so much, though, from my time on the Hill. I was there a very short time.
I mean, it wasn't as big a deal, and they weren't able to capitalize on it as much. Sort of
I realize that great KITM listeners know what the motion to recommit is, but just in case.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's the last chance before a bill moves to final passage for the minority to make changes to it.
Yes.
And what the minority has been doing when it's Republicans, Democrats do it too, but Republicans aren't as, easily duped, and I don't know why. Republicans don't play with Democrats when Democrats do it. Yeah. Democrats do with Republicans. So Republicans put up these poison pill things that they know will be really, really hard for Democrats, the moderates, the blue dogs, to resist.
Yes.
Because it'll make them look bad, even though nobody ever pays attention to motion to recommit votes.
Right.
So they always peel off a handful of Democrats to vote on something really awful before final passage of a bill, thus sort of sullying the passage of the final bill.
Yeah.
In some cases. In some cases, just, screwing with them, just messing with them.
Right.
Yeah, and this is... Long ago, the solution would have been Democratic leadership cracking the whip and saying no.
Yes. No. I said, yes, you're right that they should say no. Don't vote for it.
Don't vote with Republicans on motions to recommit. Just don't. Yeah, and they'll stop putting these things up if they don't work for them.
Yeah. I mean, they might still do them, but it's a lot less effective, and it just doesn't seem to work. And as you pointed out, when it really became a problem was when we realized, in the previous Congress, when Democrats were in the majority, this was some years ago, but they were able to say the Republicans would put up motions to recommit, and Democrats would, as you say, peel off, and they'd foul up the final passage of these bills. And in years long past, the motion to recommit was very powerful, and depending on the wording of a motion to recommit, you could essentially kill a bill with a motion to recommit. And then they managed to redo that and say, all right, well, you can't kill it, but you can screw it up a little bit. And they used that. Then when Republicans took the majority and Democrats said, well, we will do the same thing to them. We'll show them. And they began offering their motions to recommit, and they never won a single one. Mm-hmm. And then, so we flipped back and forth a couple of times since then. And what keeps happening is when Republicans are in control, they simply instruct their Republican troops, you are not to vote for these things. These are procedural votes. They will count against you in getting what you want out of leadership. They screw everything up. If you vote for one, we'll break your legs. And it worked. And Democrats said, well, vote your conscience or whatever. And they let them do. And that was when it really became an issue. Was when I think actually Rahm Emanuel was one of the top strategists in the House at the time and said, we can't have Democrats in marginal districts where they need to be moderate and to be able to break with leadership from time to time, be pressured by telling them you'll break their legs. You got to let them do what they need to do in the district. And at the time when you could kill a bill by passing a motion to recommit, just outright kill it, which they did eventually get rid of that option, you could essentially say, well, my motion to recommit is simply adds the following language: America is awesome and number one in the whole wide world. I dare you to vote against that. But it doesn't have any legal effect. And I can't be seen voting against the statement that America is awesome. And in my district, I only won by 3 points. Are you kidding? They'll kill me. The veterans will, and you'd have people do that. And the old mechanism was, you pass that amendment, that means it has to go, just like the name says, recommit. It gets recommitted back to committee. Committee takes it again, and it takes so long to get a bill out of committee and to the floor that if you finally have your shot at it and then it gets recommitted, the leadership just says, to hell with it, move on to something else. We're not bringing it back. Thank God they got rid of that. But now they will do things like, okay, we'll pass this bill, but it will have the Hyde Amendment attached to it. But there's no abortion funding in this bill. I know, but,
They've used it most effectively in the last 2 years on immigration stuff.
Okay. Yes. I mean, so it sometimes is a clever, they use them for wedge issues whenever they can to make
whatever wedge issue they think they can make Democrats sweat on, that's what they use. And it works.
Yeah.
But not now.
Right. Well, yes,
I would rather have seen Democratic leadership start knocking some heads together and saying, don't do this, don't do this. But that didn't work. So rather than what they talked about at the beginning was just eliminating them completely, which of course nobody would go along with because rules, institution, norms, whatever.
Yeah, and it has a slight bad look. It is nice when they describe the motion to recommit as you did. It's the one chance guaranteed that the minority gets to add an amendment, which is not always the case otherwise in the House. Sounds like a fair thing, and it gets people riled up if they hear about it. But as your other point is, who the hell ever heard of it? Here we are explaining it.
Right.
20 years into the controversy.
These are not votes that are really tracked outside of potentially some lobbying groups. You know, the NRA, yes, would probably track MTRs on anything gun related.
Yes.
And they would love, that's one of the reasons why they use them, by the way, is to beef up scorekeeping for these kinds of extremist groups.
Yeah. They are sometimes.
But anyway, going forward, MTRs can't amend the bill on the floor. They can only send it back to committee.
Okay.
Which, is not a bad thing. Actually making a committee mark up a bill, maybe for real, maybe considering real amendments. Mm-hmm. That's not the worst thing.
No, not the
But also because, Republicans weren't doing this to actually have the bill discussed and marked up with and dealt with in committee. Normally,
yes, that's
they're not going to bother. They're not going to go to all that hassle of actually having to show up and make substantive arguments for amending a bill.
Yeah. Also, they could lose, which they would in almost all circumstances. Yeah, this is that too. I mean, ultimately, what we were doing was you were saying that the minority in the House gets to bring very divisive and controversial amendments to the bill to the floor. Without doing any of the work of convincing the committee that it's a good thing, without facing the test, without facing the test of having a committee vote, and also without letting anybody see the language of the amendment until it shows up on the House floor, which are advantages, I guess, that nobody else is afforded. You can't spring surprise amendments anywhere else in the process.
No.
And to say a minority full of, well, now this one in particular, full of QAnon wackos who are going to object to the electoral college vote, et cetera, but of course approve their own elections, or just get to have secret amendments at the last second, and it's just sprung on you on television and everybody has to vote. Nobody gets that opportunity in the majority, so I give it to the minority.
So this is a reform I don't hate at all.
That's good. Yeah, I'm for that one, I guess. I'd like to experiment with it anyway. We'll see how it goes.
I mean, I'm still sort of miffed that leadership just didn't step up and deal with it, but that's asking an awful lot of.
That's right. There would have been an angry
those institutionalists, let's say, in House leadership.
Yeah. Although I do say I recall at some point during the angry fights about motions to recommit back in the old days when they were that much more powerful, that even Steny Hoyer, who's pretty institutionalist, said at some point, well, maybe we should just get rid of the motion to recommit altogether. And there was other people who said, ooh, that's a bad look, Steny. I was surprised by that, but sometimes he can be a real fierce.
Ago, wasn't it? When was he arguing that?
That might have been like 2006, 7. I guess after the 2006 elections, and saying we should just get rid of it entirely. Or it could have been even earlier, for all I know. It's now everything's a blur now. I don't even know what day it is today. So
I only found out it was Tuesday when Mom said, "Isn't it Tuesday? Aren't you doing radio today?"
Oh, yeah, right. So you ran to it. Well, yeah. So I'm not certain when it was. I don't know how serious he was, but that's my recollection. It's from the hazy, misty past. There was another rules change that I saw mentioned with regard to PAYGO exemptions. This is very weedy, but I saw that, for instance, Ryan Grimm was very excited about it, thinking that it would clear the way for some of the most ambitious progressive agenda legislation that might otherwise be held up, including climate change legislation, very sweeping stuff, whether it's the extent of Green New Deal or not, we have yet to find out, or possibly even healthcare reforms, Medicare for all, etc.
Right. As long as you can argue that the economic and health responses in your Medicare for all or healthcare bill relate to the pandemic.
Okay.
Excuse me. But so it's economic and health response to the pandemic and stuff on climate change.
Okay. So
those are the two things that the budget committee chair can declare exempt from PAYGO. Basically.
Okay. So limited window on healthcare stuff, but climate change, this is an acknowledgement that that's a extraordinary and long-term problem, and that gets its own exemption. That's good news.
It is good news.
And good backroom organizing by the progressives to push for that, to recognize that as a sticking point. I mean, it's hard not to notice it, but only if you've been paying attention to their legislative efforts to date, which not everyone is. This is I say high marks for the organizers of the Progressive Caucus inside the House for doing this, even as they've been under attack for being turncoats and sellouts, for not demanding something, depending on who you're talking to or listening to yell at you. I, by the way, have never heard, for instance, Jimmy Dore. Well, I'd never heard of him before this year anyway.
A couple weeks ago.
But I've never heard him say what needs to happen. First of all, by the way, I know this is unexciting and unsexy and can't raise any money, but we need to change PAYGO rules in the new House rules package before any of this even becomes possible. People who were paying attention to that were the people inside the House and doing the work and butting heads up against PAYGO before and realizing not only does this need to change, but I know how to change it, and when that happens, I need to organize to do that because there's only one shot at it at the beginning of a new Congress, but that work needs to begin now in order to be ready and have convinced the right people in January.
And they did a darn good job in getting that done.
Yes. So the real work has happened there. The yelling work, you could do that year round.
Well, the yelling work is somewhat helpful.
Sometimes, yeah.
In pointing people to where they need to go to fix things. Enough the squeaky wheel.
Sure. You tell people what you want.
It's got to be recognized and made a big deal if it's going to be fixed. But the problem is where it gets unrealistic and where people actually think, well, of course Nancy Pelosi had the power to pass $2,000 stimulus checks all on her own.
Yes.
Which we saw some of during the latest pandemic relief.
Yeah. Right. And
you can't just ignore the Senate. You can't just ignore Mitch McConnell fighting to take away everything nice we might have ever had.
Yes. And I think we've kind of straightened that one out, but a lot of misconceptions. And a lot of people who heard of unanimous consent requests for the first time also last week or last month, who suddenly were sure that they knew exactly how that procedure worked.
Right.
But okay. That's what the show exists for, is to explain some of those things. And, some of the people who worked on this very insidery change not so long ago didn't know that. And said, we'll force a vote on this thing that we want. And then, they attempted to, and then they were like, oh gosh, there are rules that prevent it from going anywhere. And instead of saying, to hell with that, or I quit, they said, the unsexy work of changing the rules.
How do we get around these rules?
And
how do we change these rules?
Yeah. So, well done there. Good patience.
On the House side, changing the rules on the Senate side.
Oh. Yeah, well, that's a different...
A lot of it depends on today.
Yeah, that's true too.
And even in Georgia, if we get those 2 Senate seats, we're still not going to see the end of the filibuster.
Yeah, that's probably true too.
Not in the next 2 years. Probably.
Yes, most likely. Right. There have been some, Manchin has come out and said no to this. I still think there are ways to force him to do it, but nobody's going to help me with that one because I actually need Mitch McConnell's help. So, but it will be interesting, although I guess some of it could come up. If we were to win these 2 seats, and then I guess now we have to add the caveat, and Republicans, fail to find a way to overturn the results of that election.
Right.
And they install 2 new Democratic senators. We have a 50-50 split, and then that becomes an interesting... They got to have an organizing resolution that takes that into account. And that should be interesting and contentious, because even if the House or the Senate majority depends on having a tie-breaking vote in the new Vice President Kamala Harris... That's the fact of it. But yeah, Republicans will say, but we want, do we get 50-50 representation on the committees? Well, no, not really.
No.
They're still the majority. That one vote counts. And they may say, well, if it's all dependent on her one vote, then we're going to pretty much make it so that you have to have her here every day. Well, maybe.
Which, Vice President doesn't have a whole heck of a lot else to do, so
she used to
by all means
so
put her in that chair permanently.
So
this is where, if we do win these 2 seats, we're probably going to have a bit of a campaign on Schumer to go maximalist on the organizing.
That's true. He'll have to push it as hard as he can, and just hold that tie-breaking vote out there as a threat. But it'll be real interesting. And then if Republicans, as they have in the past, they have at some points in the past threatened to filibuster the organizing resolution so that you can't put a committee together to do anything, that might be interesting as well. Maybe there you say, all right, Manchin, no filibuster reform. You're just going to sit here and have no committee assignments.
Right. And with Cruz, with Rand Paul, with Josh Hawley there.
Yeah.
They'd certainly be willing to do that.
Yeah, if they know about it. The threat
if they know about
filibuster, the organizing resolution, I think predates all of them. On Hawley might just not have any idea whatsoever. But someone on staff will tell them. So, as it turns out, Chip Roy, who disrupted things in the House the other day, was a former chief of staff for Ted Cruz. He read the rules at some point.
And was quite adamant that he was not going. This I just do not understand.
Mm-hmm.
Chip Roy being the good guy on opposing electors.
Yeah. That wasn't.
Who saw that one coming?
I did not. I would never have guessed that a Republican would have made the objection, although it was very clever of him to do so. I still don't know what he gets out of it, because, of course, we mentioned earlier today, he spent Monday saying that if Democrats win the races in Georgia, how did he put it? We're going to have a full-scale hot conflict if they win democratically elected seats. Seems like not the same guy, but I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know either.
Yeah, so, okay.
Maybe we'll know more next week.
Yeah, it'll be an exciting couple of years. So thanks for coming by and discussing things today. We'll see what the impact of tomorrow's activity and the new rules in the House are maybe fairly soon. And maybe even by next week we'll have something to talk about with that.
All right, Kagro.
Okay.
Good to talk to you.
You too. Take care. Glad you remembered to come by. Thanks to Mom for that one.
I'll tell her.
And keep up the good work, Mom. Make sure she gets here on Tuesdays. Great. Thanks, Joan. We'll talk to you next week. And it's time now to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We'll see what he has on tap briefly. Maybe we can squeeze something in before here. Ron DeSantis in the news went totally off on a reporter. We'll find out why after this.
From netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Wow, okay, well, apparently it was about chaotic vaccine rollout that has left tens of thousands of senior citizens in Florida, can you believe it, waiting in line overnight. Well, there's some good news on the vaccine front. They had some mishap out in California that they managed to figure out unrefrigerated vaccine that they just doled out as quickly as possible.